Episode 1, Take 2. Hello there, and welcome to the Process of Becoming by Sipho Boy. This is my very first episode, so welcome. Behind the podcast, I am an aspiring African philosopher on a journey and creator of YouTube channel Afro Hub and African Indigenous Knowledge Hub. Afro Hub has the initiative of exploring African spirituality, exploring African identity, exploring African literature and music. We also have a foundation called Isisekelo, laying the foundation of becoming, where we're teaching children more about African identity, learning more about African literature, and also exploring African spirituality. What is the podcast without me first explaining what my purpose is? My name, Sipho, means give us good or beautiful gift. It's a request, it's a direction to serve and to give only good. There's good that exists within me that I'm supposed to embody and embrace wherever I am. And it is innate. No one can take it from me. It just grows from here onwards. And based on my willingness, it either grows or it just stands still. And from this podcast, the process of becoming, this is me literally saying, I am being molded, I am becoming. And most importantly, I am embracing all parts about myself, the good and the bad. I think we've been so conditioned to think that the world's life is supposed to be perfect. We're supposed to be in a garden where we're naked and we're eating fruits, and life is just supposed to be perfect and great. And if it's not, then that is from the devil. The good is from God, and the bad is from the devil. But how are we supposed to grow from the good and also from comfort? Um, and in his book, Dr. Scott Peck, in his book, The Road Less Traveled, he starts off with a sentence and he says, life is difficult. That's it. That's all he says. Life is difficult. And he says that the moment we accept that life is difficult, then we stop over obsessing of the fact that life is difficult because we've come to that acceptance. And once we realize the difficulty of life, then instead of holding on to the difficulty, we then try to find ways to cope with it, right? And I guess that is the power of acceptance, being able to accept that. And I think also another thing is like social media. It's like we've shown only the best parts about who we are on social media. And so we take our lives that come with the good and the bad, and we start to compare it with this perfect life of social media. And I think the best version, the best thing that we can ever do for ourselves is just to be authentically ourselves, to be able to embrace who we are. And I guess that's where growth comes from. And I remember from a podcast that I heard from Dr. Gabor, where he speaks on vulnerability because it is an important aspect of growth. And he defines vulnerability as our ability to be wounded, to feel the wound, because pain tends to disconnect us from ourselves, tends to disconnect us from our emotions. And us healing is us coming together. And he also speaks about how everything in nature grows from being vulnerable. A crab can't grow when it's in a hard shell. The tree needs to be in its soft part, it needs to be soft for it to be able to grow, right? And it made me like just realize like how when we're going through stuff, we tend to close off. Vulnerability becomes a weakness and we tend to close off. And that's something that I've also seen in my own personal life, where when I go through things, I tend to close off away from everyone so that I can actually deal with what I'm going through. And once I have, then I come out into the world. But what I've realized is that with the people around me, then that sends off a message to say, she doesn't go through hardships, because we only get to see the best parts of her. And now this is me saying, I am coming to myself, from the good parts, the bad parts, all aspects of it. And also, like, which goes back to my podcast cover, which is me bare with flowers and just naturally me. And I'm holding these beautiful bouquet of flowers. And those are parts of me from my garden. And it makes me think, when I'm looking at that picture, it makes me think that in order for these beautiful bouquet of flowers to grow, I need equipment from my garden. For a garden, the equipment that you need is a garden hose, digging equipment, and on my side, it's spiritual guidance from an authentic spiritual guider under the context of African spirituality. It requires my equipment is my willingness to grow and to embrace my truth. And for this garden to also grow, I also require to water my plants. And also, just before watering, I need good soil. And soil it's my soul. I need to be pure, and my purity is my truth. To be truthful. To be truthful in every part of me. To be truthful in admitting my faults. To be truthful in admitting my struggles, to apologize, to admit where I am weak, to live in my truth. And it sounds so easy to say I'm living in my truth, but there's just so much noise. And especially in this digital era, without us even knowing, without us even wanting to, the moment we open any app, we get to hear someone else's thoughts. When we speak to other people, we get to hear their views. When we are in different circles, we get to hear their views. And so our truth, our voice tends to be clouded within the different spaces that we're in. But when do we actually sit down and just say, am I still within my truth? Am I still hearing my own voice? Are my actions in line with who I am and who I am becoming and who I'm trying to be in the world? And in order for these plants to grow, I need to water them, to water my garden daily, to water them with kind words, with a positive mindset, good thoughts, with meditation, and all our practices that help us to become the best version of ourselves. In order for these plants to grow, I need the sun. Literally, I need the sun. It's good for my soul. It's good for my mood. Also, literally, I need the sun. I need to be around nourishment, around radiation, around light, and people just bring out the light in me. And for me to be able to bring out the light in myself. And that was the thought behind the cover. Now I'm about to read a quote that I once said to myself in October 2021, where I said, I am in the process of becoming, being and becoming, to become the best version of myself, to reach the highest and truest expression of my soul, to climb the spiritual pyramid and be above limitations, conditioning of the mind and the heart, to be unlimited, to be fully what I'm meant to be in the world in the context of African spirituality. Sure. And that's what this podcast means to me. It means that's what it means to me. And of course, the turning point that was the final push to me being here was after I went through my purpose phase, which I highly documented on my YouTube channel, Afro Hub by Sipotle Boy, where I explored my journey of me learning why I'm on earth and me just exploring more about my purpose and embracing it more. And that was what the phase was for. And then I experienced some lows after finding out what my purpose is. And that's when I disappeared from my YouTube channel, because I was experiencing lows. I was learning more about the responsibility that it takes when and just like the behind the scenes that it takes for you to take accountability and responsibility for your purpose. And after I went through that hard and my low, I then came back because now I was experiencing highs, right? And then I documented that journey. And then about 4 months ago, I experienced, like, I would say, like my most life challenging and my most um, life changing experience, which was experiencing death, to something that I had never experienced. Losing my grandfather, and then 2 months after his loss, then losing my aunt. And just experiencing death twice in 3 months, I was like, how do I ever come back from this? Do I wait until I heal fully and I never feel pain again? And that's what I did. But one thing I'm realizing is that that can never happen. I can never reach a point where I say, I don't feel any pain and I'm fully healed. Like, I can never say that. So, if life is about highs and lows, which means that I'm yet to experience some lows, does that mean that I disappear every time I experience lows? No, I can't keep on disconnecting from myself. I can't keep on disconnecting from my purpose. I can't keep on disconnecting from my community. It's actually the one time where I'm actually supposed to be holding on to myself, um, connecting with myself, because it's the one time that I become vulnerable, and it's the one time that I become the best version of myself. Because through the lows, we are confronted and we are forced to bring out the wisdom that exists within us. It's through these difficult moments where I'm able to also gauge my spiritual maturity, to be able to look back on situations, on how I used to react and how I react now, how I used to deal with situations back then, and how I deal with them now. And then in the highs, that's when I celebrate this new person that's emerging. That's when I celebrate who I am now. And that's when I start to look forward to who I'm yet to become. So from this podcast, I have lots of fears. I'm not gonna lie. I'm fearful of oversharing. What that means, I'm not really entirely sure. I'm fearful of people putting me on a pedestal, and also me putting more pressure on myself for just no reason whatsoever. And I think my biggest fear, and it's something that I've seen, is people expecting the same vulnerability that is on the platform, on a face to face encounter, not realizing that you have to be in a certain space to be able to open up like that. And maybe you listening can also just connect with me on my socials, connect with me on my Instagram, which is bcpohuhle, and just let me know, like, how would you handle that? What is my way around it? Because I realize that I can't run away from it. It's something that happens. And I think when it happens, that's when I also just disconnect from everything. And I can't keep on disconnecting. So how do I handle that? Maybe you can just also let me know. And yeah, those are my fears. And guess what? I'm feeling the fears and I'm doing it anyways. And so I hope that you also take from this first episode, that from this huge step of me opening myself up on such a big platform, that it also inspires you to also start your journey of the process of becoming. Thank you so much for listening. Let's keep the conversation going on my platform, on my Instagram. It's bcpohuhle. On my Facebook, not so active. But yeah, let's keep the conversation going on my socials, and watch out for the next episode. This is The Process of Becoming by Sipotle Boy. Bye.